Welcome to On the Frontline, the Military Rec Show, hosted by John Prue, a veteran MWR professional with nearly 4 decades of experience. This series shines a light on the leaders, groundbreaking programs, and innovative ideas shaping recreation and enhancing the well-being of service members, veterans, and military families worldwide. In this episode, we're joined by Doug Gilchrist, a retired military recreation leader whose remarkable career spans Navy MWR, leading quality of life programs for 140,000 troops in Afghanistan during Operation Enduring Freedom, and continuing his mission of service with the Peace Corps. From creating unforgettable recreation experiences to leading through some of the world's most challenging environments, Doug shares powerful lessons on leadership, resilience, and the lasting impact of serving others. You won't want to miss this inspiring conversation. This is On the Front Line, powered by the DPRS Media Network. Let's dive in.
All right, it is 13:30 Tuesday, 7 July 2026, and you are on the front line. My name is John Prue, is the host of this weekly podcast focused on armed forces or military recreation. We talk to professionals in the industry who are in some way making a difference in the quality of life for our military and their families. For all of you out there, you might be a morale, welfare, and recreation professional who directly supports quality of life for our military and their families each and every day, and we thank you. Maybe you have been in the military and a user of MWR programs and services at some point, and we thank you for your service. Perhaps you're from a business or organization which directly supports or wants to support our armed forces recreation professionals around the globe. You just might be a public parks and recreation professional curious about that thing called military recreation and what it's all about. Or perhaps you don't fit into any of those categories and you just tuned in. Either way, welcome. Welcome to On the Front Line, the Military Rec Show. All right, what a weekend. I'm telling you, I'm still reeling from a weekend of celebrating our 4th of July and specifically this year, our 250th anniversary of their country. We are going to discuss a few of the many celebrations that were out there, MWR events at military installations around the world. We'll do that in a little bit. But did you see that record-breaking fireworks from Saturday night in DC? I stayed up late. They had a little weather delay going on, but wow. I mean, wow. I've dabbled with some fireworks in my time, over 20 years, putting on some shows and being very intimately involved in the production and music selection and what shells go off where. So I know a little bit about fireworks shows, but I was just sitting back just in awe. 150,000 shells in a 40-minute show choreographed perfectly to a live military band. It seemed like it was represented by all the different services, and live singers during these songs, perfectly or choreographed. Not to mention, they had an hour delay, so if there was a timing issue, they needed to resync. I'm just thinking logistically that had there was a lot going on Saturday night, and that show was just awesome. And not to mention the multiple locations they were shooting this from and all that good stuff. So we are going to talk about fireworks. I actually have someone coming on who I worked with for many years in the industry. We actually did a session back in NRPA. His name is Win Kramer. He's going to come on an episode later this month, and we're going to talk pretty exclusively fireworks and large celebrations. And we're certainly going to talk about that world record breaking fireworks show from this past weekend. So yeah, I can't wait. That'll be at the end of the month. Anyways, besides that, our soccer craze took a big blow as well. And again, I'm reeling from that. I was really getting psyched up. I thought we could get to the round of 8, but didn't look that way. USA didn't play that well, and Belgium's obviously a good team and beat us last night 4-1, and that hurt. But it was a good run, and apparently, USA Soccer still has a little bit more to go. But we certainly showed much better this year, and the excitement around the World Cup games and the tourism. This has been a good thing. It's been fun and been pretty huge for our country in terms of goodness around the World Cup games. So we'll go from there. Okay, today's guest is Doug Gilchrist, retired MWR leader, but also served as in a leadership position with the Peace Corps at 2 different locations around the world. So definitely a world traveler, an adventurous guy who is not afraid of recreating himself. And so I'm super excited to chat with Doug, and I know you'll enjoy the conversation as well. As you know, we are part of an amazing media company called Daily Parks and Rec Show, or DPRS. DPRS Media exists to honor those park and recreation industries, reflecting on the stories, the highlighting the careers, celebrating the real pros out there doing the essential work in our communities, and that includes our military communities. Want to give a shout out to our producer today, Jovi, as usual. Again, trying to keep me in check and make us looking good, but she's doing everything behind the scenes from pulling up graphics and transitions. And Jovi, ahead of time, thank you for what you do. I also want to thank our founder of DPRS Media, Craig LeBlanc, for allowing us the opportunity to host this weekly podcast focused solely on military recreation and the great work being done out there. Side note, our episodes are now being loaded on the YouTube channel. We'll talk a little bit more about that. On the Frontline has its own playlist, so it's pretty cool. I think we're up to about 20 of our 27 episodes are already loaded up. We do some post-production with that, so it takes a little bit of time, but plenty of content on YouTube. And our audio files are going up pretty instantaneously onto Spotify, so you can find us there. Again, Daily Parks and Rec Show, and On the Frontline can easily be searched. We have our own playlist there as well, and I think we have 25 plus episodes up on Spotify. So goodness there. Okay, today's show sponsor is Outdoor Link. If you want to turn your entire city on and off with a swipe of a finger on an app, this is what Outdoor Link does. Outdoor Link builds smart cities connecting your park lights, splash pads, fountains, scoreboards, bathroom door locks, or anything powered by electricity into a simple app on your phone, tablet, or desktop that can be controlled from any location 24/7, 365 days a year. If you'd like to learn more about Outdoor Link, tune in to the Smart Parks Forward Show with Dave Ramirez on the 2nd and 4th Mondays at 1:30 Eastern Time on the DPRS network. You're going to see a short promo from Outdoor Link, and then one near and dear to me, which is JDP Services Management Consulting. So, Jovi, I promise we'll be back, but Jovi, take it away.
JDP Services Management Consulting, supporting parks and recreation and the essential service they provide. Communities benefit greatly from having dedicated advocates who champion the value of play in open spaces. Such advocacy ensures that recreational areas are prioritized and managed in ways that enhance the overall quality of life for everyone. We are dedicated to fortifying public park and recreation agencies and other related organizations by taking a practical, engaged approach to consulting and training, addressing immediate needs while equipping clients with lasting insight and tools to strengthen their organizations for long-term success. JDP Services Management Consulting. meeting needs and exceeding expectations.
In today's parks and recreation industry, communication, safety, and efficiency go hand in hand. That's where Outdoor Link comes in, delivering smart technology that empowers city departments and community planners to do more, smarter. Outdoor Link's platform connects and automates everything that keeps your parks running smoothly, from lighting and locks to signage, water features, Wi-Fi, and digital advertising. Control and schedule park lights for safety and energy savings. Remotely manage facility access. Coordinate fountains and splash pads. Provide public connectivity. All from one simple, unified platform, giving you real-time control, data, and cost efficiency. For parks and recreation agencies, that means safer spaces, smarter resource use, faster responses, and stronger community engagement. And behind every great park story is great infrastructure. That's why Outdoor Link proudly supports DPRS Media Company, helping the daily Parks and Rec show amplify the voices of professionals shaping our communities every day. Outdoor Link, smart, connected solutions for parks, recreation, and beyond.
All right, we are back. This is the point of the show where we talk, and I mentioned in the beginning that we're going to talk about some of the cool events that were happening around the world with MWR programs at bases all over the place. So, Jovi, if you want to pull up the deck, we'll take a look. I'll talk through it the best I can for our Spotify listeners who won't see the graphics, but we'll talk about it. As we have been doing pretty much all the month of June leading up, and last week I think we identified 8 or 9 different bases that were doing some events. Some of these Freedom Fests and celebrations were done last weekend leading into this holiday weekend. And obviously, a lot were done over this past weekend, over the 4th of July. So, yeah, this is a celebration of a lot of things happening on military bases across the world. So, first of all, kind of small pictures here, but just gives you a flavor. This came from Fort Jackson, Fort Gordon, Fort Carson, and Fort Lee, which all had some version of an Independence Day celebration. Some were called Freedom Fest, some were just called 4th of July Festival. A lot of names to it, but big name talent on stage, some major performers, fireworks shows across the system, and most of these bases had that. Family activities, food and beverage, carnivals, all intact in most of these events. And again, this is just a little bit of a smattering of these. And I know I don't have all the bases that were on here, but again, some of these are a collection off of our Facebook site, which we'll talk about in a little bit, through the Armed Forces Recreation Network of NRPA. So we've got a cool Facebook and LinkedIn page that you can be a part of, and this will come up on your feed. So really kind of pluck these as they came up, and they're still coming up. Matter of fact, right before the show started today, saw a couple other bases that had just posted their pictures for the weekend. And it's really cool to reflect and really see what's happening there to take care of our military and families across the world. This one is we have Naval Air Station Key West, Camp Humphreys in Korea, Fort Campbell, Joint Base Langley Eustis, and then Marine Base in Iwakuna in Japan. So yeah, a lot of good stuff. And as you can see, major performers. I think that's Aaron Tippin up there with the guitar. I think I recognize the red, white, and blue guitar. But a lot of major performers, family activities, big crowds, fireworks, and obviously a taste of Americana for those that were overseas. And in this particular case, Japan and Korea were represented on that. So just really cool stuff. And it really kind of shows through what we can do. And when you say military recreation versus public parks and recreation, all I'm going to say, they're different, but I do say military recreators know how to do special events. We're kind of focused on these big events a few times a year, and we do it quite well. Not to say Public Parks and Recreation doesn't, but I'll put our big special events like these up against anybody from any kind of agency, even if it's a non for profit that's running it. Okay, let's move on here. YouTube, we talked about it. This is our YouTube page. We are trying to do more things live on YouTube, but we're one of those weird entities that literally have more episodes than we do. Well, we're getting close now. We might have more subscribers than episodes, but a couple weeks ago that wasn't the case. But we are looking for more subscribers. So if you do have a chance to look us up on YouTube and subscribe, that'll allow us to eventually get to 1,000 where we can do some cooler things from a live standpoint. It's just, there's a lot more we can do internally producing these podcasts under that umbrella of DPRS media when we can get there. So if you can help out, that would be great. And you can see down in the lower left, we have our own playlist. So all of those that are put up there, you can easily archive the Armed Forces portion of this, or the Military Rec Show, right down there off YouTube. Okay, this slide got a little goofy. Sometimes when we upload these, they get out of sync. But the gist of this is that July is Park and Recreation Month, as most of you know, and we celebrate it. We celebrate it in the military the best we can, and Public Parks and Recreation really does a good job. Leader of kind of this whole push is NRPA, does an incredible job. And as being on the board of directors, they challenged us to go out there. We do this every year. We always try to raise funds. There's so many initiatives. There's so many grant programs that NRPA administers to help make sure that those essential services are out there, and that all folks in neighborhoods and communities have parks and recreation programs and services they can support. And so this is just a link down below. It's too long to even mention, but just let you know, if you do come across any of my social media, we are doing a little fundraiser. It all goes into the same pot, but we're doing it individually as board members. So, hey, I like competition next to as much as anybody. So give to my page versus my fellow board members if you get a chance. But seriously, we are collecting all month, really kind of focus and give money back through the grant programs and through other means, other work that NRPA does that really will make a difference in all those communities and ensure that every kid has a park that they can walk to within a reasonable distance. And that's not always the case, or they don't have the ability to participate in certain programs, and we can help that out. So if you have it in your heart, or you feel moved to give, check it out. And again, on my social media channels, you can certainly find my link, but just go to NRPA and give. That's probably the most important part. Okay. Let's, the Armed Forces Recreation Network, typical QR codes. The one thing I do want to point out is AFRN meeting, their monthly meeting, is tomorrow at 12 o'clock. So if you go over to the left, you can see where that meeting will, you can sign up for the meeting and get the link, but it's 12 Eastern time tomorrow. They've got some training on some safety protocols and different things, along with some service updates. They got a really good meeting scheduled for tomorrow, so please check it out. Every month, second Wednesday of the month is their meeting. And again, Armed Forces Recreation Network, made up of MWR professionals and others through the NRPA program. And then, of course, our Facebook and LinkedIn sites as well. Oop, we'll go back here. All right, Jovi, you can take that down. And we will, I want to introduce my guest here. Let's bring in Mr. Doug Gilchrist, former MWR director for 13 years at Naval Base Ventura County, California. However, Doug actually finished his DoD career role leading quality of life for about 140,000 troops in Afghanistan during Operation Enduring Freedom. Super cool, not your typical duty, or job for anybody in the MWR world. So we certainly want to talk about that. And then Doug went on in some leadership roles with the Peace Corps too, which I find really interesting. So taking care of people around the world is something Doug has done. But we'll let him tell us more about his military rec career and MWR journey down the line. So Doug, welcome officially. Welcome to On the Front Line, the Military Rec Show. How you doing?
Good. Thank you, John. Good to be here.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we used this picture, and we're going to bring it up here for a promo in the ad with you you out there in the helmet. We can hardly tell it's you, but we're going to pull that up. And you shared a couple other pictures with us that were pretty darn interesting.
Okay.
So hopefully you can explain the origin and background. So Jovi, could you pull the slide deck back up again? Okay. So let's start with the headshot we used for the promo. Tell me more about what the heck you're doing and where you're at in that picture on the left.
Well, I've been a skier all my life. I've loved skiing. And probably 10, 15 years ago, I watched a Warren Miller movie where they said, if you're following ski tracks in Switzerland, be careful, because just because there's ski tracks doesn't mean it's safe to ski down. And the next thing you know, they're following a skier and he goes off a cliff. And they pan back and he's got a paraglider above him. And I said to myself, I've got to learn how to do that. The sport is called speed riding, where we use a very small paraglider and ski, and that allows us to fly about at the same pitch as an expert trail. So you can ski as much as you want, and then when a cliff comes or a crevasse, you can just fly right over it. It kind of combines both of them, and to be honest with you, I think it's safer than skiing off piste, because if it gets too steep and I start to fall, I'm going to tumble unless I have this wing above me, and it's like an angel picks me up and takes me off. So it's called speed riding. And that was, I believe, somewhere in Switzerland.
So you can go down and ski. You can be pulled up. You're doing a little bit of both.
Exactly.
It almost reminds me of the kind of like an auto belay on a climbing wall. You know, you got that safety feature. You can't get hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, maybe you can.
Once you get airborne, you have to have a landing spot. So you see where I'm flying over, there's no trees and beautiful open areas for me to land in. If you're doing it over areas where there's trees, you have to, everything happens really fast and you're going to come in for a landing really quick. But I love the sport. I've been doing it for probably 8 or 10 years. I learned to paraglide in the country of Georgia, which is a whole nother story, because they didn't speak English and I didn't speak Georgian. So learning that type of sport was an incredible challenge. But then I guess want me to jump into some of the other pictures, or?
Yeah. Let's talk about the one up top with the surfboards. What's that all about?
Yeah, so that was an interesting. When I went to Point Mugu, one of the things I found out, I was East Coast, so I'm not a surfer, but one of my athletic guys ran my youth program. He was also a surfer, and the running joke was, if we couldn't find him, everyone would check the surf to see if the surf was up, because we knew where he'd gone off to. Because the Navy base in Point Mugu actually happens to have, it sits right on a submarine trench, and that submarine trench causes incredible waves. It's been called the best break in all of California. It rivals the breaks in Hawaii because of this submarine trench. And so the surfers were always bugging us, how do you get on base? How do you get on base? And a captain one time said, hey, is there any way you want to just do a surf contest or something? And we started it in 2008, and the first year we had 115 competitors, and it just grew from there. We've had Olympic folks that surf there won the junior. One of them went on to win a silver medal in the Olympics in surfing, and that was one of the just accidental turned into an amazing event. And we opened up the base just one weekend a year for the surfers to come on board. If they try to do it any other time, they get a summons for trespassing on a federal regulation or register. So yeah, that was the surf contest.
That is amazing. I love the little camo netting too for the backdrop there for the picture.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool. All right, and who is your VIP guest down in the lower corner? Was that it? I take it that might have been in Afghanistan?
Yes, that was. We were actually sitting on a C-17, and that was General Chuck Yeager. He came to Afghanistan probably of all the football players and rock stars and country music players, General Yeager was by far the biggest hit because he's basically a legend in the aviation. He's the man who broke the speed of sound.
Sound barrier,
yeah. Yeah, and it had flown at the time every airplane in the aircraft industry. He started off enlisted and worked his way up as a mechanic, then became a pilot. Had some amazing stories, and we took him all around Afghanistan. We worked for the J1 who do the medals and the awards, and I asked him. I said, "Hey, can you are there any air combat awards that need to be given out? And if so, I'll ask General Yeager if he'll pin them on." And he did, and that was
that's awesome. That's lucky for those guys to be able to get that honor. And yeah, we don't have a space program without the brave people who did a lot of those test flights back in the day. That's for sure. That's awesome. Well, Joby, you can take that back down now. Thank you. And thanks, Doug, for sharing that. But I follow you on Facebook. I know you're an adventurous guy, do a lot of different things. It's fun, and so sharing those pictures maybe give our audience a little taste of what you're all about and where you've been. But hey, let's talk about that journey. Again, you kind of ended on the Peace Corps side. You had a wild ride through DoD, starting with Navy MWR. Matter of fact, I do believe you started via wood auto hobby and wood hobby shops. So walk us through how you get from there up in Maine all the way to the Peace Corps. How did that all happen?
Yeah, it's a long and windy road, but it actually started before that. I was born in a Navy hospital. My dad was a naval aviator. I grew up on Navy bases and Air Force bases, and so I was a customer first, and then I started after high school. While I was going to college, I needed a part-time job, and the Navy base had. I was actually a customer of the auto hobby shop and the wood shop, and I spent so much time there learning about woodworking that the manager at the time said, "Hey, I need a weekend supervisor if you're willing to, you want to work." And I took the job, and then all during college, I would come home on the weekends and work the weekends, and then in the summertime, they'd always seem to find a job for me. So I started. I think the first summer I worked at the golf course, just a clerk at the front desk, picking up range balls. And then the next summer they gave me a skeet range, which, trap and skeet. Yep, there you go. And the problem was nobody was really using it. Trap and skeet had fallen out of favor, and but we had to give it one more try. And so the rec director put me out there and said, "Let's advertise it. We'll be open 5 days a week, every weekend." And I did, I remember I did $97.50 for the whole summer. And that was my entire take for the whole summer, not even $100. And it was $250 a round. So I guess if you do the math there, you figure out how many rounds I had done, but not even 40 rounds.
Yeah, you don't need a spreadsheet to track that utilization.
Yeah. So then after that, I got another job working the next summer. I think I ran the outdoor rec program and boat motor and camper rentals. And then when I got out of college, I tried to join the Navy. I wanted to be a pilot, and my eyesight's not good enough, so I couldn't get a waiver. And I'm still working at the auto hobby shop, and they gave me a promotion. And before I knew it, they then promoted me to running all of the gear issue, and now it was a full-time job. And I think I just never got a real job. I just kept working, and worked my way up in Brunswick. I eventually became a MWR field course manager for the management course because I was going to school for business, and I had a really good handle on budgeting and those sort of things. And they saw that and put me in as a field course manager. Then I ended up, we built a new building, a new auto hobby shop. So I was heavily involved in not only running the shop, but the construction of a new facility. And
that's exciting.
Yeah, it really was. And I then had again moved up again, got promoted to the kind of a deputy MWR director position, where I was responsible for all public works stuff, mainly because I had done so well building this new auto hobby shop. I knew public works, I knew the folks at NAFAC, so that I was now responsible for all of the construction on the base. We had a couple of child care centers being built and gymnasiums, and then I think I was converted to GS. I was NAF at the beginning. I got converted to GS. I think it was like 17 years into my career. And they asked me if I wanted to join the retirement plan. And I was like, well, yeah, this might be my career. It's a little late, 17 years in, to join the retirement plan, but I did.
Yeah.
And
did you, let's see, were you around when they did the buyback program? But that was specifically for NAF, where they had one opportunity where you could buy back up to 5 years of that program. I don't know if you remember that, but
right. And if I had just joined that NAF retirement plan for 1 month, even, I could have bought another 5 years. But I didn't think it was a real job. And then one day, Pat Harden, he Navy MWR training. Yes,
he's the best.
He had kind of taken on it his own to be the Navy placement officer for MWR. And he called me up and he said, "Hey, I know MWR stands for Margie Won't Retire." Margie was my boss, and she had been there for many, many years. And he said, "But there's a job in Naples, Italy that I think you would be interested in and great for." And so I sure enough called up Chris Robus and put my application in and got hired as the recreation director in Naples, Italy. So that at that point I realized, this is a career. And Naples was an amazing opportunity. And I sort of understood this a little bit growing up, because as a child, when I lived on Ramey Air Force Base, everything I did was on the base. They provided the entire support. Because if you went off base in Puerto Rico and tried to watch the movies, sorry, it's in Spanish. And so it's a whole different community when you're actually living on a base overseas. And to be able to run the recreation program in Naples was just, it was amazing. It was just a wonderful job. You felt like you were part of the.
So at that time, you not only had Naples, the base, the installation, but it was also the location for the regional headquarters for Europe, Southwest Asia, correct?
No, when I first got there, they were in London.
Oh, so they hadn't moved yet to Naples. Yeah,
George Schaefer and Chuck Beard and Steve, all those guys were up in London. Gotcha. And which was kind of nice, not having your big boss sitting in the office across the hall. They did eventually move to Naples and put their office in the same building, but that was not until by that time I was the MWR director and they were just moving in.
Okay.
So that was very, very, very rewarding. I started as the recreation director under Chris Robus, and then moved up. Chris went back to the States, and I became the MWR director there. I think I was the MWR director for probably 5 years. And there's a 5-year rule, but I had already been extended to 7. And part of the problem with that 5-year rule was they just GS and you had priority placement and you could go back to a place. But since I was NAF and before, and then also if you get a promotion more than 2 grades, you don't have to take a position lower. So it got really, really complicated for a while, and everyone was working in a bit of a limbo state. And it just happened that the position opened up in Naval Base Ventura County, and I was not knowing whether I was going to get ripped out of Naples and sent to
wherever. Yeah.
I thought, well, at least Naval Base Ventura County looks like a job that would be interesting. It looks like a nice place to live.
Yeah.
And so I applied for it, and I got the job in Naval Base Ventura County.
Awesome.
That was also interesting because it was a blend. I started in Brunswick, which was Airedale. It was an aviation base. It's all the brown shoes. And then when I went to Naval Support Activity in Naples, it was a supply logistics base, so a lot of the brown shoes. And then when I went to Port Hueneme, it was the home of the Seabees. It's the Pacific East or the West Coast home of the Seabees.
Yep.
So I had known Seabees because we worked a lot there, but that was a combination where there used to be Port Hueneme as a base and Naval Base.
They merged.
Yeah, they merged. NAS, Naval Air Station Point Mugu, merged. And so it became very complicated and convoluted.
Didn't you also have, I can't remember the name of the little island that's just off the coast too, that has some support services in there? You guys were responsible for that as well. It's kind of like an annex site or something.
It was originally part of China Lake, and that for the first couple of years I was there, it was part of China Lake, but was really weird because they flew in and out of Point Mugu. So we sort of had a little relationship where we provided them with, all of their supplies would come in to Point Mugu. Our folks would help them load it on the plane, but it was run by China Lake. And then eventually they said, look, we're just going to move this all under Naval Base Ventura County, which was interesting too, because now you have an extra small base. I think there were only 79 folks living out there on the island. But it had I think it was a 2-lane bowling alley, and it had a tiny little swimming pool and a tiny little gym. So the program there was basically a 2-person program. That was it. We had the manager and one assistant.
Yeah, unique situation, but that's what we do. We take care of unique situations. So,
but it was nice too because even though it was a tiny program and there was only 2 people there, now all of a sudden he had direct support to a larger bowling manager who had a lot more, supplies, equipment, trained mechanics, and he could send his mechanic out there. And at Port Hueneme, we had like a 12-lane bowling alley or 16-lane bowling alley and an 8-lane bowling alley. And so by using those resources, it really, really helped moving it up.
So you ended up staying there for 13 years in Ventura County. So we're going to pause here and take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about how you got to go in the middle of Afghanistan and involved in that conflict, because that's unique. And we're going to talk Peace Corps, and then we're going to get into some of the things that you learned that maybe we can share with the audience on that career path. So Joby, take us away, and I promise we will be right back with Doug Gilchrist.
They say it's Just Rec. Just Rec, where kids learn to try again. Just Rec, where confidence begins. Where teamwork, effort, and fun matter more than trophies. It's not about perfection. It's about participation. It's not just rec. It's where kids learn to love the game and themselves. It's just rec until they learn teamwork for life. It's just rec, but it's everything to them. It's more than rec, it's a movement. It's just rec until you realize it's shaping the next generation. Together, we're not just running programs, we're building a culture of confidence, connection, and community. Join us.
This episode is brought to you by SDSU's Sports MBA program. If you're passionate about sports and want to work in the women's sports industry, then this is the time to pay attention. SDSU's program is 12 months accelerated hands-on learning where students have actually gotten to work with teams like the San Diego Mojo, partnered with the Farmers Insurance Open, and visited headquarters like the Upper Deck or Callaway Golf. It's built for people who want to be in rooms like that. So if you're interested, deadlines are approaching. Learn more or apply with the links in the description.
All right, we are back with Doug Gilchrist. Okay, you're at Ventura County. You get an opportunity. Tell us about that opportunity to go to Afghanistan and why you made that decision.
Well, it was a very interesting situation how it rolled out. The MWR director from Coronado, I had heard that he was on a temporary duty assignment to Afghanistan, and I didn't really think much of it. I didn't research it at all, and he's about 6 months into his tour, and he sends an email out to all the MWR directors in the region, and he says, "Hey, I'm approaching the end of my tour, and I'm just looking for my relief, and I'm wondering if anybody out there is interested." And I sent him an email back. I said, "Yeah, Dennis, I'm interested. Tell me more about it." And I hear absolutely nothing. A week goes by, nothing. A week later, I get an email from him. "Sorry for the radio silence, but I had to run some things past the colonel. You should be getting orders tomorrow." I was like,
So an inquiry said, "We'll take
I was like, okay, I guess you just have to be a little interested. Everybody else stepped backwards, and I'm standing there. Well, it ended up
that's
being,
how it rolls in DOD.
yeah, it ended up being one of the most fortuitous opportunities I ever had. I had absolutely no clue. But again, like I said, there's so much difference between providing recreation to folks who are deployed overseas, whether that be in Naples, Italy, or and doing it in stateside. Well, I had already had, I think 11 years at least. I think 13 years was total, but that included 2 of my years in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And I had built what I felt was a very strong department that had very strong managers and leaders and programs that were running, pretty much on a clockwork. And so I thought, this is an opportunity that I think I can step away and see how well some of the other folks step up in my organization. And so I went. We ended up going to some training before we went there. The organization was called the Civilian Expeditionary Workforce. And the interesting thing about it was everybody there was temporary duty from their assigned job. So your job was still there, and you would just go right back to it like you had just been to a conference or a school, except that it was 1 year. So I showed up, and it was definitely the most rewarding job I've ever had in my career. There wasn't a day that went by that a soldier, sailor, Marine didn't thank me for doing my job, and I just said, "Don't thank me, thank Uncle Sam. They're paying for all of this. I'm just happy to be here." And it really, I describe what the Navy calls it the fun boss, but I really was Santa Claus to 140,000 troops. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah. And I just imagine, them eating up the fact that there's a little respite, a little opportunity to take a break, to take a breather, to to do something fun or connect with other people when they're mission in harm's way in theater.
Yeah.
And that went on for a long time. So you being able to deliver that, not and let's face it, you must have had your own personal risks. This wasn't exactly a completely safe place, was it? Or were you super secured that you never worried about anything?
I won't say that I never worried about anything. Well, probably I don't think I ever worried about anything. I do remember the first night or maybe second or third night I was there, a rocket attack happened and the alarms go off. Well, first you hear this massive boom, and then the next thing you hear, the alarms go off, and then usually there would always be 2 rockets at least. And so then you'd wait for the second one to go off, and I thought to myself, because boy, when the USS Cole got bombed, and that was all over CNN, and okay, wow, and I thinking to myself, pretty ignorant, wow, all my friends back home are going to hear that Bagram got shelled, and they're all going to worry about me. And so I sent them a little secret message saying I'm safe, and they were like, well, what do you mean you're safe? What happened? And I come to find out later, it was such a routine basis that I ended up surviving over 100 rocket attacks for the 2 years I was there, probably closer to 200. And for the most part, the rockets hit out on the airfield, or they hit in open areas. Occasionally there would be an injury. Very rarely was there a death. So it was,
anything has risks, but not. But on the second or third night you had this happen. I mean, is that the welcome wagon of?
Yeah, exactly. And then basically I found out that at least twice a week for the entire tour I was there, we would get shelled. So
wow.
You just got used to it. When I first got there were these big sombreros hanging on the wall in the office, and I was like, "What are those sombreros for?" And they goes, "Oh, whenever the rocket attacks come, we put the sombreros on and we go out and we dance in the courtyard." I was like,
what are you gonna do? Yeah, you gotta laugh. Sometimes you gotta laugh.
But other than that, they really did protect us. I felt incredibly protected. I had body armor and Kevlar, and anytime we traveled around, you saw the picture of me. Well, actually, that one I don't have. There's another picture of me with the helmet and Kevlar on.
Yeah.
But they really did protect us. And the nice thing is, and this was really surprising to me, when you are working MWR Navy recreation, you kind of feel a little bit like you're just a civilian and you're not really part of the team. When you work Navy recreation or military rec overseas, then they give you an ID card. They let you shop in the commissary. You are part of that team. Well, when I went to Afghanistan, the civilians there actually got to wear the uniform.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of the biggest honors of my career, because we spend our time serving those who serve. And I think when I talk to my friends, they all think, "Oh, well, you were in the Navy, weren't you?" And I was like, "No, I never really was in the Navy. I served the folks who served." And so to be able to wear that uniform was an immense pride to me.
Yeah, to be forward deployed and right there delivering crucial services is something big. So quickly, before we move on to Peace Corps, what type of really facilities, programs, services did you provide? What did you have to work with as quality of life director?
So probably 4 different things. First, I ran the Navy education centers and the libraries that were throughout the regions, and I think we had 7 at the time. So there were libraries and education centers at different bases, Kandahar, Mazar Sharif, and those also offered college courses. And I was surprised. We graduated well over 1,000 people the first year I was there.
Wow.
While they're in a combat zone getting their degree. I mean, you got to give them props. People say they don't have time to do it here, and these folks in a combat zone are getting
no excuses. No excuses, people.
Yeah, so that was the education center was one, and then we ran internet cafes. We had satellite dishes that we would plop down and drop 10 computers, and it depended on how big it was. We could multiples of 10, 10, 20, 30, depending on how big the base was, and provided them with the internet so they could Skype home and they could send emails.
A lifeline.
Yeah, that was one of the best. It was wild that we had folks that we would just tell them, look, you got to provide us with a tent. And they were like, okay, well, we're going to clear out the galley and we'll just eat MRAPs. And I'm like, wow, you would eat MRAPs just so you can have the internet cafe. And it was that important to them.
Yeah, I bet.
And then gymnasiums. We gave gymnasiums. If you were at least 25 troops, we would provide you with a gym setup, which included weights, one life cycle, one treadmill, one elliptical trainer. And I remember we did a order for Life Fitness, and I just told them, just send me 1,000 of each of them. I was a crazy amount. And so we had over 600 internet cafes, I think over 2,000 gymnasiums throughout the theater. And then we would also give them recreation rooms, so pool tables, foosball, Xboxes, TVs, PlayStations. And then I also ran the Armed Forces entertainment program. So all the entertainment visitors that came through. That was it. I mean, really. And then, believe it or not, I also signed off on all of the Subway internet, the Burger Kings, all of the fast food restaurants that they wanted to install. I was responsible for that. So,
It was
definitely, it gives them something to do to take their mind off of what they're doing, which is.
Now this was circling back early on when we went into Iraq. I knew some people that worked with KBR, a contractor, and when we were over in Iraq, they had, and again, these were contracted services, but a lot of them were MWR, former MWR employees that took a job with them. And they actually set up shop in all these palaces that Saddam Hussein had, and they turned them into rec centers. And I have a whole deck and slide pictures of these things. They're absolutely nuts what they did, but it's about taking care of troops and giving them a thing. You didn't deal with any contractors that provided similar quality of life services.
Yes, we did. So, when I say 2,000 gymnasiums, so the base commander then has to staff it. And sometimes they would staff it with their own troops. But if it was a really big base, they would then contract with KBR. And so I would provide the gym equipment and whatnot, and KBR would actually staff it with their contractors. Again, like you said, many of them were MWR professionals that had moved over there working in those jobs.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so you get done on the backside. You still have your job at Ventura County, but Peace Corps comes a knocking. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that was another. I kind of had worked my way up through Naval Base Ventura County, and I felt I left it in a really good place. I also felt that I had given them a really good candidate for my relief while I was there in Afghanistan, and then I extended for another year. So I was in Afghanistan for not just one tour,
2 years.
And then through delays, it ended up being almost 2.5. But so I was like, I'm looking for another challenge. Where do I go from here? And I didn't really want to go to DC. I didn't really want to move up to headquarters and get a headquarters job. I really do like being in the field. And I happened to be on an R&R in Mozambique, and I was building a house for Habitat for Humanity with a group of people. And the U.S. ambassador to Mozambique comes along with the Peace Corps director for Mozambique. And while everyone else is talking to the ambassador, I'm talking to the Peace Corps guy, and he says, well, Peace Corps could use somebody with your talents. And so at the time, I was thinking to myself, I could go anywhere in the world that I want to live for the last 4 or 5 years of my career. and hand out basketballs in the gym. It doesn't matter. I just need time toward retirement. And I've already reached the point where my high three for retirement are based on.
Yeah.
So I want to go someplace and do something that's interesting. And Peace Corps sounded interesting. And then I looked into it and I found out the Peace Corps actually counted as, if you were a Peace Corps volunteer, it actually counted as time toward your federal retirement. I was like, wow, I could be a volunteer in 79 different countries throughout the world. Let me look into this. And I accidentally went on USA Jobs because that's just where I went. And I saw that there were 3 different positions the Peace Corps was advertising for. And what I didn't realize at the time, I thought I was joining and I was going to do some volunteer time. When I got the interview call, and she said she'd match my salary, I was like, oh, this is a paid job? And yes, it was. It was a paid position. MWR or Peace Corps has 3 paid foreign service. I guess they're foreign service foreign service worker. I was in the foreign service.
Yeah,
so it's like GS, but it's for the foreign service. Yeah. And so I went to Georgia. Absolutely loved it, and there was a lot of similarities between running an MWR department and running a Peace Corps operation, except I was taking care of Peace Corps volunteers as opposed to sailors, but also a lot of it was the running a budget, managing people, and leading an organization.
Yeah, skill sets you've accumulated over your career. Yeah.
And so I did that in the country of Georgia for 5 years, and then on to Mongolia for another 2.5. It was again very, very rewarding. So
that super interesting career. We could have 5 episodes on your adventures. But what did you learn early on in your career that helped you with some of these last positions and roles? Because you were in uncharted territory here as a military rec guy that started in Brunswick, Maine, and now you're in theater in Afghanistan. You finish up with the Peace Corps again, serving people. What are the little things that maybe helped you early on that prepared you for those last 2 gigs?
Well, it's one of the things you learn early on is that you can't do it all yourself, and so it's the people that work for you, and how do you empower those people, and how do you lead those people? And I think one of the stories that it kind of stuck with me most of my career was when I was a field course manager for the Navy's management course. At that time, I was pretty experienced. I knew all the answers, and that's why they made me the facilitator. But I remember one time I was being observed by the master field course manager, Randy Sells.
Randy Sells. Woo!
And
he knew his stuff, and he was tough.
I was.
I was a facilitator too, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And Randy was not easy.
Yeah,
but he was a quality guy.
He definitely was. And the one lesson that I learned, one time one of the students came up to me and asked me a question, and I, gave her the answer, and she went back to her seat, and Randy says, can I talk to you outside? And I was like, oh, I've never done that before. So the 2 of us went outside, and he said to me, I don't ever want to see you give a student an answer again. And I was like, oh, wait a sec. I thought that's what my job was here. And he was like, no, the minute you give them the answer, you take away the pride of ownership of them discovering that they can learn how and that they can answer it. And that kind of stuck through my career. And more so than that, if you're a micromanager and you're giving your employees, you're requiring them to come to you to ask, what do I do? Then they won't think on their own. They stop thinking because they're afraid of getting in trouble for coming up with the wrong answer. And so kind of 2 things that I learned there is, one, never take away the pride of ownership. Instead, ask them questions, lead them, open their mind up to where the answer becomes obvious to them. And then, aha, oh yeah, I know. And so that little trick right there does a couple things. One, it builds their confidence and that they can go find the answer themselves. But the second thing that's got to go along with that is that you have to be tolerant of someone coming up with an answer that might be a little different from the answer that you came up with. If everything's got to be exactly your way, you're going to miss out on a lot of good ideas because their answer might actually be better. I'm not always the smartest guy in the room. And you finally learn that the more you encourage your folks to think for themselves.
Yeah, and it's a pitfall you can fall into. I mean, the op tempo sometimes is so high, and somebody comes, it's so easy to just give them the answer and go from there. But how about give them the instruction, or give them the manual, or give them the path on where they can find that answer? That's just as useful, and then they learn that skill on their own and that pride that
Exactly.
you are talking about, and obviously Randy
Yeah.
reinforced in everything we did. So,
Well,
um,
and not only that, you can only answer one person's question at a time, right? And if you teach 20 of them how to find it for themselves, they are all answering their own questions all the time in the background and frees up your
yeah,
time. You
yeah,
can only micromanage a very small amount. But the more you teach people to think on their feet and
so
um,
true.
and that pride of ownership, that building of the self-confidence is, I think, one of the most rewarding things of my career. If you were to
Yeah,
ask me what I was the most rewarding thing, it would be mentoring people and seeing them succeed, seeing how they have grown and how they've moved on in their career because they are thinking on their feet and they are smart. So,
yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I enjoyed being a facilitator. I did LSFM. That's how I got rolled into it. So I worked with Jim Astrakis, who's the
yep.
master facilitator at the time, but knew Randy and attended many of his courses. Still try to stay in contact with him. He's loving retirement and
Yeah.
golf and his San Francisco Giants, if I remember right.
Yep.
He is a baseball fanatic, so good guy. I'm hoping to talk more and do an episode actually about some of the stuff that was going on at Pax River. Our training branch was phenomenal. I mean, you had
Yep.
Pat Harden. You had Mike Judd, who's leading things. I've been in contact with Mike. Hopefully, get him on an episode because that's some really good stuff that really laid a foundation for a lot of us out there, and even the training today has pieces of how we develop training, carrying it forward with it, at least within Navy MWR. So that's good stuff. Do want to ask you, and unfortunately we're going to be running out of time, but you're an adventurous guy. I see what's going on Facebook. Tell us what you do for fun now in retirement, but living in sunny Southern California, but up in the mountains. Tell us what Doug does to recreate and decompress and enjoy life.
Well, I already told a little bit about the paragliding. I love to fly, not just on skis. In the summertime, I fly, flown at Torrey Pines.
Oh, wow.
Skiing, it's a very short flight. It's like skiing, maybe 5 minutes top to bottom. But with the actual paragliding, they're real airplanes. And my longest flight is 5.5 hours. I routinely fly for 4 hours in the afternoons. So paragliding, I love. And in skiing, of course, I've been a ski patroller actually for 40 years. Ski
Oh,
patrolling in Europe, ski patrolling in California. And then I love to travel, and I love traveling on a motorcycle. And last summer, I put the bike on a ship, shipped it to England, rode all around Europe, hit 40 different countries. The summer
wow.
before, I hit every state in the United States, including Alaska. Did not ship the bike to Hawaii. And then this winter, I'm gonna head south. I'm gonna go down through Guatemala, and actually going to be doing a stove build with some of the folks I met from Habitat for Humanity in Guatemala, and then I'll continue on the motorcycle through Panama into South America and to Ushuaia. And I did go to Ushuaia this winter because I went on a sailboat to Antarctica. Actually brought my paraglider and flew my paraglider in Antarctica. I think I'm only maybe the second or third person who's ever done that. So I do like to travel. I like an adventurous
Yeah.
travel. So
I need your standard operating procedure for retirement because my cooking, hiking, some golf when I can get there, and the season around the Midwest
yeah.
cooperates. Lots of travel, but not quite like that. So that's awesome. Hey, before we get out of here, what's you've done so many things, Doug. You're a legend in our business. What's the thing you're most proud of in your career within DoD?
Well, like I said earlier, I think the people is probably the people that have worked for me and the organizations that have become really wonderful, and watching them grow is absolutely probably the top. But if you're talking about events that I put on, I did air shows, I've done major events, but probably the most rewarding for me was putting movies on the USS Theodore Roosevelt. I Reba McEntire came, and she wanted to play on the Roosevelt, but they were in combat at the time, and the CO said, "There's no way I can shut down for 3 days to have her come play on the ship." And so Reba played for the folks in Naples, Italy, and was very well received. My 10,000 people flooded Carney Park, and it was an amazing concert. But we felt bad for the Theodore Roosevelt. And George Schaefer at the time, he calls me up and says, "Is there anything else we can do?" And I was like, "I don't know, George." He said, "Well, how about, can we put the first run movies? We have these first run movies coming, right? Isn't like the newest Star Wars coming? Can we get that out on the ship?" And I was like, "Wow, George, that's a big ask. Let me think about this." And well, I had 2 movie theaters, so we shut one down, took the screen down, took one of the projectors down, and me and James Zeke, my deputy, the resource guy, the engineer, flew out to the USS Theodore Roosevelt, and flew out on a helicopter. It was the first helicopter ride I ever had, and boy, that was like being put in the back of a bus and driven down a dirt road. I couldn't see anything out of it. It was shaking, and it was. But we landed on the aircraft carrier, and the chief engineer in charge. We knew what we had for a movie theater. We knew what it needed. And I was a little worried about the sound, but the aircraft carriers have Bose sound systems that are all acoustically balanced, and they assured me that if they could just get an audio input, like phono jack,
They make it work.
make it work. And then we looked at the hangar bay, and there's a spot where they hang the American flag, and I was like, "Well, can we just hang the screen right in front of it?" And sure enough, we rolled the screen up, brought it out. That was not a problem. The sound wasn't a problem. But the engineer, the chief engineer, the Chang, I guess, of the boat, he said, "Look, this is I got a nuclear power plant here. Now, I can give you all kinds of power, but I can't give you a ground." And I needed 220 with a ground. And he was like, "I don't know if your projector's even going to run because we don't ground things on the carrier." And I went back and was like, "Oh, what are we going to do now?" And my electrician said, "Well, hey, I can run this thing off a construction generator. We'll just rent an Italian construction generator, put it up on the flight deck. I'll make you a really long cable that can run down to the hangar bay." And so we did that. We loaded a construction generator.
Improvise.
I was like, I guarantee this is going to work. I can't guarantee anything else. And then it was so funny because James and I had gone out, and I called the theater manager, and we needed to send a projectionist. I couldn't do it. I don't know how to run those projectors. And so our projectionist, very quiet, meek Italian guy, we said, "Look, you're going to have to be out there for a couple of days." He says, "Can I tell my wife where I'm going?" "Nope, you can't tell her where you're going." "Can I tell her when you're coming back?" "Well, it's going to be about this." And sure enough, this little my projectionist, we flew him out to the boat along. I think at the time we sent my athletic director to make sure everything was coordinated with him, and they set it all up in the hangar bay. We strapped the projector to a pallet so we could raise it up on a forklift, and it just went way up so it was above their head, and that was too high for the projectionist. So we moved a engine work stand right next to and he stood up on the engine work stand and ran the projector. and everybody brought their
So this was what, 16 millimeter at the time?
35.
Oh, 35. Okay.
35. So you're talking the really big stuff.
Yeah.
Massive. This projector is the
Wow.
size of a refrigerator.
Wow.
It's massive. But that was the only way we got the first run overseas. So it was actually less than 2 weeks after it had been released. So it was basically immediately. And we got 2 first runs, the Men in Black 2, I believe, and the Star Wars, where they were racing those chariots with the jet engines.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
Yeah.
So those are both played. And of course, we couldn't, by the time we went there, which was only the very next week, they had declared peace in Bosnia. And so the carrier's mission was over, and they steamed out of the Tyrrhenian Sea into the Med. And so sun went down. They started the projector in the Tyrrhenian Sea as it cleared around the boot and ran the movies nonstop from dark till dusk.
That is awesome, and well worth we ran over a little bit here, but well worth it. That's a cool story, and it really does depict what you do, but what we do as an entity. I don't care what service. You just make things happen sometimes, and it makes you feel really good. And you got to work, and you got to personally sacrifice, but it makes you feel good. And I think that summarizes Armed Forces Recreation pretty well. So, Doug, I love talking to you. We got to have you back on, because I know there's stories in there where we're going to dive down. We're going to do some more things with these episodes in the future, where we talk about maybe training topics and really focus in on certain things. But we got to hear from a legend and a great career. So thank you so much. That's it for us today on the Front Line. I want to thank again Doug Gilchrist and his amazing story and journey through our profession. Thank you, Doug. We will be back next week, same time, same place, for another great episode. So on behalf of all of us at DPRS Media and On the Front Line, the Military Rec Show, I'm John Prue, and we are out here.
In the parks and recreation industry, attention is limited, but influence is everything. Every day, thousands of parks and recreation professionals make critical decisions. Decisions on infrastructure, programs, technology, and vendors. The question is your brand part of that conversation? DPRS Media Network was built to answer that question. We are a dedicated media ecosystem focused exclusively on the parks and recreation industry in the United States. Through a network of daily and weekly shows, we inform, connect, and influence this audience. Our distribution spans multiple platforms: LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, X, Instagram, plus email campaigns, newsletters, podcasts, and live event coverage. This is not a single-channel strategy. It is a multi-platform media engine. Today, our network reaches over 214,000 connections, including 51,000 on LinkedIn, 64,000 on Facebook, nearly 40,000 email subscribers, and thousands more across podcast and social platforms. While some audiences overlap, our true value is not just reach, it is relevance. We speak directly to parks and recreation directors, program managers, and industry leaders, an audience that is highly targeted and actively engaged. Through DPRS Media Network, your brand integrates seamlessly into this ecosystem. Through sponsored show segments, targeted advertisement placements, podcast features, and host-read promotions, even custom branded content. Not as interruptions, but as part of the conversation. And we don't just operate online. We attend over 15 major parks and recreation conventions each year, reaching more than 24,000 professionals in person. Through live shows, interviews, and on-site media coverage, we position our partners at the center of the industry, Every piece of content we produce is amplified across our entire network. Multiple shows, multiple hosts, multiple platforms. Your message doesn't appear once, it multiplies. This is more than advertising. It is strategic positioning within a trusted media network built specifically for the parks and recreation industry. If your goal is to reach decision makers, build credibility, and stay top of mind, then it's time to partner with DPRS Media Network. Apply for partnership or sponsorship today. Let's position your brand where the industry is already paying attention.